Turkey is rewriting its constitution. And depending on who you ask, that is either the most important democratic reform the country has attempted in decades, or the most sophisticated political maneuver its president has ever pulled off. The truth, as is usually the case in geopolitics, sits uncomfortably between the two. Let's break this down. Turkey has had two constitutions in the modern era, the 1961 constitution and the 1982 constitution. Neither was born out of democratic consensus. Both emerged from military coups. Soldiers seized power, rewrote the rules of the state, and handed governance back to civilians on their own terms. That is not a minor footnote, that is the entire problem. A constitution is not just a legal document. It is the foundational contract between a state and its people. When that contract is written at gunpoint by generals rather than citizens, its democratic legitimacy is permanently compromised. That argument is difficult to refute. Even many of Erdogan's fiercest critics do not try to. Earlier this month, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan used a state ceremony to formally renew his push for a new constitution. He called the military-authored charters a democratic disgrace. He argued that the authority to write a constitution belongs exclusively to the nation, not to any state institution, not to any political faction, and certainly not to any general. His framing was deliberate and historically grounded. He drew a line between two models of constitution making, top-down, imposed by elites, and bottom-up, emerging from the people. He positioned himself firmly in the second camp. He wants a constitution that is, in his words, inclusive, liberal, and civilian. Now here is the part that makes seasoned observers pause. Under Turkey's current legal framework, Erdogan cannot run for another presidential term. That is the law as it stands. A new constitution, however, would reset that clock entirely. This is not speculation. It is the central concern of Turkey's opposition, large sections of its civil society, and most Western governments watching this process unfold. When an incumbent president initiates a sweeping constitutional overhaul with an election cycle approaching, the question of who benefits from the new rules is not a paranoid one. It is the only rational question to ask. Critics point to something else as well. While Erdogan speaks about limiting state power and protecting individual rights, his government has spent years doing the opposite. After the failed coup attempt in 2016, thousands of judges were dismissed. Executive control over judicial appointments expanded significantly. The independence of courts has been consistently questioned by international observers and domestic lawyers alike. You cannot champion constitutional protections in public while eroding institutional safeguards in practice. That contradiction sits at the heart of why this debate is so contested. And yet, the case for reform is not manufactured. The 1982 Constitution is a product of a specific and deeply authoritarian moment in Turkish history. It was designed by the regime of General Kenan Evren. It reflects the priorities of a military government, not a functioning democracy. Turkey has changed enormously since then. Its population has grown. Its civil society has matured. Its political landscape bears almost no resemblance to what it looked like 4 decades ago. Reform is not just defensible, it is overdue. The question was never whether Turkey needs a new constitution. The question is always who writes it, under what conditions, with what safeguards, and whose interests it ultimately protects. Turkey is one of the most politically polarized countries in the world right now. The 2023 presidential election made that visible to everyone. Erdogan, despite all the advantages of incumbency, failed to win outright in the first round. Roughly half the country voted against him. A constitutional referendum launched in this environment does not heal a divided country. It becomes another battlefield. Another moment where Turkey's two deeply entrenched political blocs harden their positions and entrench their mutual suspicion. Layer the economy on top of that. Inflation has been persistently high. The lira has struggled for years. Real incomes have been squeezed. Public frustration is running deep. Launching a major constitutional overhaul when ordinary people are worried about rent and groceries is a politically volatile calculation. One more factor deserves attention because this is AXIOM and we do not ignore the bigger picture. Turkey is not just a domestic story, it is a NATO member. It controls the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles, the critical straits connecting the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. It has positioned itself as a mediator in conflicts where Western leverage has largely collapsed, including Ukraine and the broader Middle East. A Turkey consumed by internal constitutional turmoil is a weaker Turkey on the world stage. Some external actors, and there are several with strong incentives, would not be unhappy to see Ankara distracted and destabilized. A constitutional process that deepens divisions rather than resolving them creates openings for exactly that kind of external pressure. Here is the honest assessment. A referendum will almost certainly happen. Erdogan has the political commitment, the institutional tools, and enough of a coalition to push this forward. A new constitution will likely be adopted. The real question is not whether, but how, and what price Turkish society pays for it. If the process is genuinely inclusive, if opposition voices are heard and incorporated, if term limits are not quietly rewritten to serve one man's political survival, then Turkey could emerge with a constitutional framework it can be proud of. If it is not, Turkey will have traded one military-authored constitution for something arguably worse. A constitution designed to extend the rule of a single political leader dressed up in the language of democratic renewal. The world will be watching very closely, and so should you.